It's the people, the many faces and places and things that make Central Florida come alive. From familiar to foreign, young and the young at heart. The tastes and sights and sounds that we call home. It's sharing, caring, and being a part of a community. This is Central Florida's Vision on Action TV 27.
Hello, I'm Betty Martinez-Lowry. Welcome to Vision, a public affairs show brought to you by NCCJ, the National Conference for Community and Justice. Have you ever had someone or something reflect back to you in such a way that it made a lasting impression? Maybe it was a situation where you got to see yourself and discovered a part of you that needed changing. That's what Dramatic Solutions does. It provides training on all issues of human relations that helps to hold up a mirror in which participants are able to see themselves. This seeing themselves in the mirror is often the most startling and enjoyable part of the training and is making a difference in the way we interact all over Central Florida. Learn more about Dramatic Solutions when we return.
Look, I have grown up with people of color, okay? I have gone to school with people that were black, African American, and in my college or graduate school, okay? In our church, we have a minority group, okay? Okay, my nanny, Sheila, she was black. I mean, I was raised by a black woman.
So was I.
Look, all right.
Welcome back. Joining us today from Dramatic Solutions are Gail Golden McHugh and Bryan Hayes. Gail and Bryan, welcome to Vision.
Thank you very much, Betty.
To share with me some of the history of how this came about, because it really is quite different.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Really great way of training. Actually, my mom was a director of Child and Family Services in Buffalo, New York, and I started doing theater with Child and Family as training in '85 for kids, and then in '89 for Haven House, which is the shelter for victims of domestic violence. And that's how it started. From the Haven House project, it got picked up by Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations, and they brought us over to UAW Ford and a lot of other clients, and that's how business theater started for me.
How did you get into the picture then, Bryan?
Well, I started working with the original company probably around 95, 96, when I was in corporate world, in the Fortune 500 company that I worked for in the printing industry. And I was in HR at the time, so it was kind of a dual existence between HR and theater. And I had met Gail in the theater community. We had done some shows together, and she told me about this company that they were doing some work, and they asked me to be in one of their presentations. And after I did that, I just thought to myself, wow, this is really incredibly powerful things that could be a very useful tool in the corporate training world. Mm-hmm. And that was what kind of my expertise was corporate training and development. So when the opportunity presented itself, Gail was going to be moving on from the company that she had started and wanted to branch out more into the corporate world. I said, let me join you. I would love to do that, and I think it's something that could be very viable.
Mm-hmm. And you use the word powerful, and since I've had the honor and the pleasure of seeing you perform, seeing you in action, powerful is the word. What is it about doing this kind of a dramatic presentation that sort of breaks down barriers? What I see, you know, often when people hear, oh, diversity training or training of any kind, it's the roll of the eyes or the shudder, like, oh no, not again. But not with this. Why is it different?
It's realistic. There's humor involved, and it's interactive. But it's not, you know, some companies do things like role play where they force people to interact, and a lot of folks are very uncomfortable with that kind of thing. This is as interactive as any individual participant wants to make it. If you want to get involved, because the actors stay in character when the scenes are over with, as you know, and they do an interactive question and answer period as their characters. So if you want to participate in that, you can. If not, you can get a lot out of just watching, you know, the other employees where you work participate.
And I think a lot of the power comes from the fact that when we go into a company, a corporation, a school, an educational or government facility, to do this, prior to us doing it, we've spent a lot of time with that agency, with the people there, getting to know them, getting to know their vernacular, getting to know their in-work challenges. So we incorporate a lot of their own history into our piece. So when we're doing our scene, we are really, in fact, becoming a mirror to that population. But in a safe way. We'll take a story that we might have been told, and we'll change the characters around so they can't say, oh, that's Betty up there doing that Betty thing, you know.
So you can protect the innocent and the guilty,
That's
right?
right. That's
But,
right.
you know, if we're given enough time, and if the company wants us to do it, we'll sit down, we'll plan, we'll create a scene especially for them, and let's say there's a character of an administrative assistant who's 50 years old and Jewish, which would be a part I. Okay, then they say, then we might say, well, if you got some people who work here who are kind of like this character, maybe her personality or some of the challenges she's facing at work, and they put together a little group of people, and we say right to them, we're writing a play, and one of the characters in the play is something like you. And what we want this play to do is be very realistic, very relevant, and we want to give you the opportunity right now to let everybody else at work who's taking this training understand you better. So what is it that you want us to be sure to do and say in the play with this character? And people are great.
It works. It really works. I think what's interesting, as I said in the open, is that we have a chance to see ourselves reflected in the characters that you're playing, that you're portraying. But it's interesting, and I hadn't really thought of that. We are also seeing a reflection of the workplace
Right.
up there.
Exactly.
Which and I do like the fact that you have the opportunity to sort of be a voyeur, to be as passively involved as you choose by just watching and laughing, or saying, "Oh my goodness, I remember when something similar happened to me," or to become engaged in the question and answer period. I do find it interesting that all of your performers do stay in character, but what I find most interesting is how the audience reacts to the characters.
They
It's
forget.
fairly intense
Yeah,
reactions.
it's never failed us that the audience tends to forget that they've just seen a play or a scene, that because we are so much like them, and we've touched all of their hot buttons in this piece, that they get kind of sucked in, and they start talking to us like we work with them, which is what we want, because it's a very safe, again, environment for those that want to participate, to be able to say to our actor Lucy up there, who is just like this lady sitting next to them, that they've been wanting to say this to for 10 years, that this behavior is annoying. And they tell them, and they correct it, and this lady next door might just say, you know, that's just like me. And
So it's catharsis. It's an opportunity for you to say all those things you've always wanted to say but have been hesitant to.
Right.
But I'm always interested, though, in that they will speak to you and try to change you.
Yes.
Try to say,
They
how
try
could
to
you
help
say
us.
that? Or didn't you realize that that was hurtful
Right.
when you... And I'm
it's
amazed by
something
that
you
kind
can't
of
do in
response.
the workplace.
Right,
You
and
can't-
it does touch people's emotions. It pushes buttons, like you say. People laugh, people cry.
We've had a few instances, and in fact, your co-director Michael was at one of them facilitating with us, when a lady stood up she was really moved by something that had just occurred in one of the characters, and she could not get the words out. The tears just started flowing, and Michael was wonderful. He walked her through it, let her sit down for a minute, compose herself, and then she was able to talk about this situation, which was so heartfelt to her. And the audience was just so supportive after that, not knowing that this was so impactful to this population.
So the facilitation is also very important to the success of the presentation.
Very critical. Yes, that's right. And we have got some wonderful facilitators here in
And
Orlando.
that makes a difference.
And it's
Yeah.
designed that way. I mean, it's designed so that they go hand in hand, that the scene is surrounded by the facilitation. It starts with the facilitation, talking about the issue, getting people ready to participate, and getting them ready for dramatic solutions, which is something that they've not had the experience before usually. And then at the end, bringing out all those key learnings and those takeaways that we want everybody to go away
See,
with.
when we work, that's another thing. When we go into a company, that's the first thing we ask. What is it you want the participants to take away from the performance? And we've had amazing things happen, because you can post notices and send emails and tell people things, and it doesn't affect or change the way that for example, we were talking about what happened at for the property
Right, the
management
property
company.
management company.
We did a scene, and as one component of many, because it was a general diversity scene, we had two characters who spoke Spanish as their primary language, speak Spanish. to each other in front of a group of people who were monolingual and didn't understand them. And you saw the other people all going.
And this happened 3 times throughout the meeting.
Right.
And at every time that would happen, the rest of the people at the table, here we go again. And it's rolling their eyes and everything.
So when it got all done and we were doing the question and answer period, one of the participants stood up and in Spanish she said something to our Spanish-speaking characters. And then she said to everybody what I just said to Consuelo and to Javier is that we're all guilty of this. And I never did this to try to exclude anybody. It's just a way I feel comfortable speaking, and there's so many other people who speak Spanish at work. But now that I've seen what it looks like,
The impact.
yeah, I'm the manager of my office, and I want to let everyone here who's in my office know that we won't be doing this anymore.
We're going to have a meeting tomorrow morning, and we're going to stop this.
Wow.
That was very impactful, and the owners of this management company were sitting in the back, eyes wide open, like, how did you do that in a half an hour? But the capper to the story is 15 minutes later into this Q&A, another young lady raised her hand, and she stood up, and she said, my name's Maria, and I just want to say to Yolanda, you know, I work in your office, and I am monolingual, I only speak English, and I really appreciate what you just said, because
Wow.
I really have felt excluded so many times when that's happened to me, and I just didn't know how to say it. But, you know, I've been thinking, listening to all this, that maybe the onus shouldn't be just on you. And maybe I should try to learn some Spanish so that I can communicate with you.
Wow. It was great, yeah.
We said, why isn't there a video camera on this?
That was a moment.
The employers are like, they did it, you know,
Wow.
they took care of it, this
And
huge situation.
It was painless, it was pleasant, and it was almost, like you say, cathartic.
And it
for
came
everybody.
from the participants.
Right.
They decided it themselves. It wasn't imposed on
Right,
them
we
by
didn't.
management.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were able to really get into some deep level training in a very safe way.
Right.
Because usually to have these kinds of moments happen, it's you have to go through many, many sessions.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So
Right.
much training before you can get to the crux of,
Right.
of the
Right.
matter. So how important is the humor that you use?
It's so important. It's the essential heart of our training.
And why is that? I
Well,
mean, what
It's the
is it
laughter
that...
of
Well, let's-
recognition.
well,
It's
think
not
of-
like we joke around or we act
Right.
silly. You know.
Right.
It's real human life foibles that we all get ourselves into that we bring out in these trainings. But what happens is, if you think about any training that you've ever been to, any movie that you ever sat through that you didn't care for, any television show that you sat through that you didn't care for, or any speaker that you've heard that you really weren't, how long does that stay with you? How
Right.
much do you remember of that? If you go to a movie that's just action-packed and fun-filled and makes you laugh and tugs at your heartstrings, you remember that forever. You tell everybody about it.
Oh my
Well,
goodness,
our
you can
training-
quote some of the lines.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And our training, we try to do the same thing. And we've had people come back to us a couple of years later saying, boy, when your character said that to me, I just
Yeah,
fell
they
on the
still
floor." And
remember.
They
See,
quote
it
the
stays
lines,
with
and it's
people.
just like you said.
Right.
And that's why the
An
humor is.
interesting thing about the humor is it can lead to a whole discussion in and of itself. Like we were doing training at Brevard Community College last week, and one of the lines in it is diversity training. He's the black sheep of the family. And now when someone said it, the people who, I mean, some of the participants went, "Oh," like that, and they started to laugh and all that, and other people were like, what's funny about that? So that leads to a whole discussion about that.
And I want to talk about that. We need to take a break right now, but I want more explanation on why that is so as soon as we return. We'll be right back.
You don't see in the news as much child molestation of heterosexuals. Which one is more often the case? When we've had security guards, teachers, counselors, mess and take advantage of it more often that they're heterosexual or homosexual, or are you homophobic? Do you have insecurity?
Welcome back. As we went to break, you were sharing how sometimes the power of language is what people recognize in the training that you do. Tell me more about that.
Well, there's so many different little colloquialisms that we use, little phrases that we use that we don't give any nod to in our existence. Like Gail was mentioning before, he's the black sheep of the family, or, you know, nobody's Lily White. You know, and we don't think of what impact that has on people of color and where those expressions have come from throughout history,
The origin.
how they've been used, and how, to us, it might just be a turn of phrase, and to somebody else, it might be a very, very emotional thing. And it's with gestures. When we work at certain large entertainment areas in Central Florida, and they have people that are multinational, both working in their location and coming in to their business. You know, a lot of the training is centered around how do you shake hands, how do you make eye contact, how do you behave around multi-ethnic people, because so many things can be different, and so it's a real sensitivity training around all of that, and especially with the language.
Yeah, and a real interesting thing is, you know, a lot of people who feel excluded don't say anything, you know, and inclusivity's got to mean that you've got to be aware of these things, of other cultures and religions and sexual orientations and things that, and also that if you're feeling excluded, if you're feeling like somebody is telling a joke or having conversations or something in the workplace and you don't feel like you're part of it, what can you as an individual do yourself to let other people know about it? So
and being an ally is, you know, is a huge component of is the teachings that we do. When somebody is in a position where they don't speak up for themselves for whatever reason, how can we be an ally to them? How can we step up to the plate for them and say, you know, excuse me, but what you just said, I'm sure that you weren't aware of the impact that it just had on Sue Ellen over here, but, you know, let me explain that to you.
So your training really, through the presentation, it provides people with the tools to be able
Absolutely.
to interrupt these sorts of things when they do happen. And it kind of empowers them,
Yes.
I feel, to be able to do that. Now, what do you find are the critical issues, human relations issues, that we're facing today in this community? And other communities that...
Well, certainly in Central Florida, language is a huge component down here because we have a lot of multi-ethnic coming in, and so that is...
And the employers that you're working with, do they share that's one of
Yes.
the things
Yes.
they want covered? Okay.
Another big issue is, and this is a fun one too, they're all fun, but communication differences between women and men. Right now we're doing
The
a big
Venus
piece-
and Mars thing.
Yes,
Okay.
right.
Well,
yeah.
kind of like that. Yeah.
There's this language. Women and men live in different worlds, and sometimes, you know, they just totally don't meet each other, and why, and what all those kinds of things are. We did a program in Boston, program in New York City about it, and now we're working for the government doing a
We
program
just started
about
doing a federal government program for the Office of Personnel Management on a monthly basis, going in there and doing a training on gender communication differences. And it's, like Gail says, it's a lot of fun because there are so many different impasses, just as men and women speak, and we show that, and we do that, and we demonstrate, and everybody shakes their head and goes, "Oh boy!" all the whole time.
Oh, I could relate. Yeah, I heard just yesterday somewhere that on an average, a woman uses about 7,000 words a day, and a man uses maybe 3,000 to 4,000 words a day, or whatever.
But we use them more often. Although it seems
same words over and
the
over.
stereotype is that women talk more than men. The actual fact that in a business meeting, men dominate the conversation.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
That is
So those are
amazing.
some trainings that we do. Since 9/11, religion in the workplace has been very important.
I think one of the biggest things today that people are just beginning to recognize, and we've done a few trainings on them, and as we mention it, people go, yes, we need that, is that this is the first time in American history that all 4 generations have been working together in the workplace.
Oh.
We've never had that before.
So the generational issues.
Generational issues, and they're non-traditional jobs. We don't have the seniors being the bosses and the leaders now. We've got the boomers in there that are usually the bosses, and we've got some of the Xers that want to be the bosses and are trying to move the boomers out a lot ahead of time. You know, early retirement would be really good for them. And we've got the Nexters coming in right behind, who is the instant generation, which has never had to wait for anything. They have instant messengers, instant breakfast, and instant everything. And so this sense of self-gratification on an instant level is very difficult going into the workplace for them to understand teamwork and development of a project, and so there's a whole lot of wonderful issues surrounding that.
Now, give me an example of the kinds of companies that would call on you for your services.
There are a huge variety. We work for corporate America. We're just about to start a program we're very excited about for Dow Chemical. We just did something for Masco Home Improvement, for Ford. You know,
So are they always large? What if there's someone out there that's a small employer?
We do a great deal of work for not-for-profit organizations. Generally, that's done through grants, because we are a for-profit organization. We have to pay a lot of actors to do our stuff. But we've worked out prices where we can be affordable to the not-for-profits and the schools and the educational facilities. And so we do
work with a lot of United Way agencies, both here and in Buffalo. We're in 2 locations, in Orlando and Buffalo.
And we work for the smaller mom and pop kind of owned. We just did a sexual harassment awareness training for a small chain of appliance stores up in the New York area, where they've got 6 stores in 2 cities and about 120 employees. And so we kind of meshed between the non-for-profit price and the corporate price and gave them, because what we do is we will work within a company's budget.
So really they should call you. Someone that's interested should call and find out, you know, where they can fit into the
we're not set in stone.
Sure.
No. And some companies call us to put out a fire, but often companies call us, or agencies, to be proactive. You know, and it's not just touchy, feel-good, happy kinds of stuff. It's very concrete with sexual harassment awareness training.
Which is really where we started. When we started Dramatic Solutions, was in '98, which was the same year that the Supreme Court had put forth their guidelines on sexual harassment awareness and how a company can reduce its liability by being proactive, and the size of their training, the scope of their training, lessen their liability on a proportionate level. So the more type of intense training they can do with their employees, the less liability they'll have. And we work with, like Gail mentioned, the Cornell University School of Industrial Labor Relations, or various attorneys. We bring them in as the facilitators in this instance, so they can talk about the legal ramifications and the legal aspects of sexual harassment, as well as, you know, what the company has to do. So, and
do you ever have occasion where agencies perhaps collaborate or pool their resources in order to bring you in to, for more than one at a time?
We're working on a grant in Buffalo right now, and it's for the Children's Growth Foundation with Child and Adolescent Treatment Services, the YWCA, the Girl Scouts, and Boys and Girls Clubs.
Wonderful. So that's a perfect mesh of many agencies that can all benefit from the presentation.
Down here in Central Florida, we just did with the United Way, we had 2 of their agencies come together and had us, again with Michael our wonderful Michael facilitating on diversity, general diversity. And so we were able to offer 2 agencies this wonderful training, and actually we talk about that to a lot of our clients because they were able to afford us what we love to do. We went in, Michael was able to preface for maybe a half an hour of just setup time. What are we going to be doing? What are we going to be talking about? Why is it important? And here's the process. And then we came out, we did a 35-minute scene, the general diversity scene, which we use a lot and custom designed for templates. And then from that, we generated a 2.5-hour question and answer period.
Which was, and I happened to be there, and it was wonderful. It was rich. Now, typically, how long do your scenes run? Is there an average?
No, you know, that scene, which we do a lot, like Bryan said, is about 30 minutes long. Sometimes we do a program like we did for Out and Equal last month, where it's 5 scenes or 6 scenes, and it can be done over an hour-and-a-half period or a 2-hour period. We can be a half a day.
So you can do like vignettes.
Yes, we'll design trainings that can go interspersed throughout a half a day or a full day's training. Something like we did for Masco and Ford, where there was a training segment, then a scene, and then another training segment, and then another scene, and then a tool as to how to put this diversity tool into work. And then a wrap-up scene.
Orange County Public Schools Transportation, over the summer, they had us do something for all 1,600 school bus drivers. And they had an hour. It was part of a longer program that they were doing. So that was fine. We gave them 2 scenes, just what they needed, and some facilitation and interaction with the participants. They are a great group, incidentally.
And the response, how was it?
Well, it was kind of like dinner theater. It was a little wild, and it was a little...
They kept laughing and clapping. And then they said afterwards, they said afterwards, you know, we enjoyed that. That was just great. But we never saw those folks before. What compound did they work at?
And it was a little confusing for him at one point because I was one of the bus drivers during the presentation. And then at the end, when there was this, oh, well, you see, our characters never do anything quite right, so we need a lot of help from the participants. And it really got out of hand with the manager and Gail's character and another character where they were really having this challenge. And I just stood up and I said, you know, this has really gotten out of hand, so much so that I got to step out of character here. And I got to say, you know, I'm not really Bill, the bus driver. I'm Bryan from Dramatic Solutions. I really do have some hair on my head, and I took off my head. And I really don't have this mustache here. And I'm going to come down and talk to you because it looks like we pushed a lot of buttons. And I had a bag full of buttons.
Too real.
And they helped us. And then we sometimes do what we did there, which is a final scene at the end based on the participant suggestions, where they see things working out, how you can work things out. You know.
And then we also developed a whole handout series for them to have on what the key learnings were, what the takeaways were that they wanted to work on throughout the year. And a lot of times what a company will do is have us come in and do something like that, and then maybe 6 months later follow up with us to do where are we at and how are we doing and what do we need to go forward from
Follow-up
there.
is important.
That is key, isn't it? I know that you have scripts for the scenes, but how?
Not really.
No,
It's so mostly it's improvisation.
No, kind of depends on the scene. Some of them are kind of scripted. Some of them are largely improv. They're all rehearsed.
All rehearsed.
And the characters have extensive bios, and the content has been worked out very carefully with the clients. Yeah.
Well, I think it's wonderful. Again, we need to take a break.
Okay.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Every day, this woman uses the services on the internet to access information to make various decisions. Today, she is accessing valuable information regarding safety decisions for herself and her most valuable assets. At FDLE's website, you can gain access to public information on the 25,000 registered sexual predators and offenders in Florida. To learn more about sexual predators, log on or call toll-free 1-888-357-7332.
Welcome back. Gail, Bryan, what closing thoughts can you share with our viewers?
Well, what I'd like to say is just reiterate what we were saying before, that we believe in this work very strongly. And if any company or agency or school is interested in having us, they should go ahead and call us. We're very flexible. We want to work with their budget. We want to make it happen because it's very important to us and the community.
So don't hesitate to call. Don't have a fear of calling.
That's right.
All right, and Bryan?
Well, I just think that we all need to recognize that I don't think there's anybody out there that wakes up in the morning and says, I'm out to make somebody's day a miserable day. But somehow we all manage to put our foot in it one way or another.
We're human, aren't we?
We are human, and to work through those issues is very important to have a very positive workplace, and that's what our goal is, and that's what we work towards. So hopefully somebody will call us and we can make their workplace a little better for them.
Good, because you do indeed have the dramatic solutions
Oh.
for all of these issues. So if you would like more information about dramatic solutions, please call 321-939-0309 or access their website at www.dramaticsolutions.com. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, Vision is produced by the National Conference for Community and Justice, a human relations organization dedicated to fighting bias, bigotry, and racism. Through Vision, we explore issues that affect us as a community and provide a forum for us to learn from each other. For more information on what you can do to get involved as a member of NCCJ or with questions, comments, or suggestions for Vision, please write to us at the address on your screen or call us at 407-481-8020. Tune in again next week to Vision, where we bring you the solutions to the issues that matter to you most. See you then.
Stand by. You can count and go.